We are here, and it is the UFC 322 Fight IQ preview presented by RotoWire, here to break down all of the fights on a tremendous 14-fight card. Some would say, in fact, I think most would say, the card of the year, including two title fights where two champions actually vacated their titles to move up for a shot at glory and being a champion in a higher weight class. But we will get to all of that. My name is Chris. With me, as always, are my two trusty companions here to break down the fights. It is Joe Sun Tzu and Drake Never a Burden. And boys, as I said, top to bottom, I'm not sure how it could be argued. Best card of the year, maybe the best card in a couple of years, just up and down. So many good fights, not just for bettors and DFS players, but for fans as well. The two title fights, of course, bangers up and down the prelims, and a lot of closely lined fights. That's what you'll see. Not just the fight between Schevchenko and Weili Zhang, but also fights up and down the prelims, as I mentioned, and on the main card. Should note what those title fights are, of course, before we get going. It is, as I mentioned, Weili Zhang taking on Valentina Schevchenko for the flyweight strap. And then, of course, Islam Makhachev moving up to take on newly minted welterweight champion Jack Della Maddalena for that strap. And so when you're looking at this slate, as I mentioned, 14 fights, kind of amazing that all of them stayed together. One didn't actually, but we do have 14 fights going in, which we usually don't when it is up this way. But when you're looking at 14 fights and a lot of meat on the bone, how is it that you go about building lineups? And do you immediately look to where you're going to save money? Do you immediately look to your top plays on the slate? How is it that you go about it? And I guess we will start with Joe first. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on the card and strategies as you go for your initial builds?
So this is the first time that the UFC has ever had two title fights on the same card where vacating champions are moving up to fight at a higher weight class. So that's interesting. Unfortunately for DFS, the Malcolm Whitaker fight is gonna mess things up a bit because he's 8.4K now and he's minus 485.
Yeah.
And there were people that were actually picking Haddon to beat him. So that's going to create a bit of a vacuum in DFS. He's probably going to be the highest owned fighter or one of the highest owned fighters at that price point. I typically hate to see that, but it is what it is. I think you start at the top when you're building lineups. You look at who you like in the two title fights, the 2 5-round fights, and then you build around those two title fights. And I think at least as it relates to Schevchenko and Weili, they're close enough in salary where, you could play around, obviously, play both sides in different lineups. I think it's a great card to spread. There are some live underdogs. I know there's one in particular that Drake likes quite a bit, which we're going to talk about. A couple others that have a shot. So I think this is a really decent card to play, both cash and GPPs. Very rarely do I see a card where I say I could see a really solid cash build and I could see a really solid way to mix for GPPs. So I'm kind of excited about this card. I mean, I've been excited all week about it. I agree with you, Chris. This is by far, I think, the best card of the year. There's even some narrative on this card, which I really like, which I'll go into when we get to the Bo Nickel fight. Bury the lead. So anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do kind of agree. I think you need to build around the title fights. I think in particular, the flyweight fight, because that's so close, the 8,200, 8,000, and whoever wins that fight, I think it's pretty common is going to get 10x or exceed that pretty easily, and you could easily see 100 points or more, I think, in there too. So I think that's a good spot to build. I think the title fights are a good place to start. Drake, what about you? Do you see this any differently? How do you go about building lineups on a slate like this?
I think my least favorite fight on the card is the last fight of the night. If I'm being honest, I'm not looking forward to it at all. I I wish that Valentina and Zhang Weili were the main event. I think that would have been way better. But that's just me. As far as DFS goes, I started a little differently, actually. I work with my dogs first, and I like to build from that. Specifically for a card like this, where there is a bunch of dogs that I like. I think it just allows me to build and play off of that a lot easier. But overall, this card should be an absolute banger, and scores should be through the roof for DFS.
Yeah, one thing that I'll add, Chris, a lot of people asked in Discord and various chats that I'm in, of the 2 5-round fights, which one is more stackable? And I honestly don't think you need to stack either fight in cash. However, if you were going to stack one of the 2 fights, I would stack Val and Zhang, because I think there's going to be a lot more back and forth in that fight, as opposed to I honestly, and again, I'm burying the lead here, I honestly see Islam pretty much dominating with control time. And I don't see Maddalena, scoring a lot in that fight. Obviously, he's live. He's always live for a knockout. I mean, these guys are professional MMA fighters, but the way I see that fight playing out, I don't see it as very stackable. So if you were going to stack one of the 2 5-round fights in cash, I would say stack the Val Zhang fight, but I honestly don't see any reason. I think there are enough underdogs that you could play where you don't need to stack that any of the 2 title fights.
Right. Well, it's way less binary, right? It's either going to be Makhachev wins with the wrestling, or JDM wins on the feet. When you're looking at the Zhang Schevchenko fight, you have wrestling they can both do, high volume striking. Obviously, Valentina is not the high volume striker, but Zhang is going to make her fight at a higher pace with her pace. So I think there's a lot more point scoring opportunities for both. Whereas in the main event, one guy is going to take over the fight, or the other one is. At least I think that is the common wisdom there. But we will break it all down. But before we do, I'm going to shift my layout here to show you all. Isn't that nice? That if you do want 15% off on any RotoWire subscription, go to rotowire.com. YouTube 15 is your code at checkout. 15% off any subscription. Football is up and running. You got NBA is kicking into full steam. All that good stuff. Anything you want to see there. Soccer is going on. So anything you want there. YouTube 15% off any subscription type. Okay, and now as we pull ourselves back in, I am going to we are going to get to the card and start breaking stuff down. It is our first fight, and sort of a late addition. I don't think a late addition to the card itself, but certainly a late addition to the DFS sites here. It is Mateus Camilo at 8,700 taking on Slava Borshev at 7,500. Line on this fight is Camilo minus 170, Slava Borshev plus 145. And, I actually quite liked what I saw from Camilo before he really gassed himself out on a triangle attempt and then got finished by Gabe Green. Got fast hands. He's powerful. He's got some nice trip takedowns that we saw against the fence there. And Slava just can't get the wrestling right. He never has. Last fight, which I'll say it so Drake doesn't have to gloat. I was on Slava against the man Terrence McKinney there. McKinney takes him down right away, just slaps on the sub, and that's the end of it. I don't know if Camilo does exactly that. I think they might stand in space for a little bit longer, I think the kickboxing exchanges will be interesting here for as long as they last. But I do think Camilo's got fast hands. As I said, the power, I think, is kind of a wash between these guys, but the wrestling is the big thing here. So as long as it stays on the feet, Slava's got a chance. We know how hittable Slava is, though, as good as he is offensively. So all that considered, I can't really go with him here. I'm gonna take Camilo in what should be kind of a high-paced fight and throw in the takedowns. I think you got a decent score out of it as well. So Camilo is going to be my first pick for the curtain jerker there. And we're going to start with Drake. Drake, how do you see this fight?
I don't hate the Camilo pick. I didn't go with Camilo just because I need to see a little more from him. That first fight with Gabe Green kind of worried me a little bit. If he gets tired again, Borshev will finish him. So I went with Borshev just because I think it's a good spot for the dog, especially early on in the night. I wouldn't be surprised to see Camilo win, but I don't know. I can just see a Borshev knockout coming.
It's a good point because Borshev, I mean, for all the fights when he doesn't get finished and just gets put through the ringer with wrestling, he's there every single round, to get his own offense off. So you will have to go through him for 15 minutes if you don't stop him. And if Camilo does get tired again, I don't know if he just adrenaline dumped or what, but UFC debut, all that. But it is something to consider for sure. Joe, what about you? How do you see the first fight?
Yeah, I mean, there's just such a clear path to victory for Camilo. He's training in Vegas, which is good. I've never I think Slava Claus he's the striking coach for Team Alpha Male, right? Mm-hmm. All Camilo needs to do is take him down. I mean, this is not a guy you want to box with. So, it's so binary. I mean, it's probably one of the most binary fights on the entire slate. It's like you've got the striking of Slava Claus and you need Camilo to get his wrestling going and take him down. And if he takes him down and controls him, he could win a fairly easy decision here. I mean, I don't know what it's going to score DraftKings wise, but I do think it's a pretty binary fight and there's one clear path to victory. And that's why I'm taking Camilo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I tend to think Camilo would do a little better maybe in the stand-up than all that. I don't think it's going to be as wide as, certainly the main event or some other, theoretically, I should say, the main event or some other fights coming up. But I do think that ideally the path of least resistance for Camilo would be to take the fight to the ground. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting first scrap. But Borshev has such a liability in one area that I think Camilo has to be my pick. But we're going to go on to the next fight. Now it is Baysanger Susakarov at 9,800 taking on Eric Makhachev at 6,400. Not very often you see a price that low. Line on this fight is appropriate given those numbers. It is minus 1,000 for Susakarov, Eric Makhachev plus 700. And it's funny if you look at interviews for Susakarov this week, kind of acknowledging that the first fight against Eric Nolan did not go the way he planned. He kind of wanted to come out there and do like his best Diaz impression, sort of just taunt the opponent mid-exchange until he was getting hit a lot throughout it and then got rocked at the end of the first and said, I better wrestle after this. And so just wrestle, then sub Nolan in the second round. I think we're going to get a lot more wrestling with Susakarov as a consequence. Eric Makhachev is a grappler as well, sort of a tall, lanky guy. He got some power, so I don't think Susakarov is going to want to mess around again. I think this is just going to be a very straightforward grapple heavy performance, and he's going to take it home that way. 9,800 is a big price tag. We have a lot of fights on this slate. If he doesn't get solidly over 100, like hit that 104, 106 mark, you're not going to like it. So it's a tough price tag to hit. If you do think he's going to be wrestle heavy and be able to put him away early, I would like it for that, but. And, it's probably going to be not very well picked just based on the price and how many fights we have. So if you think he can get the early finish, I say go for it. But just know that you're going to need that big score with that big salary. But the pick does have to be, of course, Susakarov. We will go to Joe here. Joe, how you see it?
Yeah, so Sakharov won on Dana White's Contender Series and then 3 days later found himself in a UFC fight on the same card as Kazmat Chimaev. He trains with Chimaev. He gets a bit of a pass. I mean, it's really tough to have to, cut weight twice in essentially the same week. He had to make weight for the Dana White Contender Series fight, and then he had to make weight again for the Nolan fight. And Nolan is not really that bad. So yeah, he didn't look great. But he got his act together and got his job and did what he had to do. I think this is pretty much of a layup for him. With that said, 9.8K. I mean, honestly, with some of the possible high scores on this card, I'm not sure how that's going to work. I mean, I don't see him getting an early finish. If he could chain takedowns and get a lot of control time, and then maybe get a late second round finish, maybe. But I'm not sure how much I'm going to have of him ownership wise at 9.8K. But definitely he's the pick for the win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That it's that conundrum. Should we pay? Should we not? Again, the contrarian pay up is an option there, but we'll see what route Drake takes. Drake, how you see it?
It's pretty much the same take. I don't see Susakayev having any issues. Makhachev is a trash can.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the short and sweet. The dynamic of the fight is pretty much well out there, and so that's what it is. I do want to just hit some things in the chat here. I Miss Goldie asks, are you picking against Valentina, or are you going to pick it correctly? I don't want to get there yet, but I will say that in the RotoWire staff picks, which you can find on our website now, there were no unanimous selections, so everybody does have a nice little medley of things going on. Deepak asks, chances JDM knocks out Islam. Well, we'll definitely get there coming up. We got Joe giving indications already, but JDM is definitely. We saw in the fifth round, just touch on it a little bit. When Bilal tried to amp up the wrestling is when he got tagged up the most, with JDM cutting his angles. And so JDM is definitely a tricky character. We will get into it later. Thank you so much for the comment. But right now we are going to move on to the next fight, and it is Fatima Klein at 9,500 taking on Angela Hill at 6,700. Line on this fight is Fatima Klein at minus 550 and Hill coming back at plus 400. And Fatima Klein can do a bit of everything in the cage. She can wrestle, she can strike. She's big for the weight class. She's very agile. And for that reason, I think she's going to beat Angela Hill pretty cleanly here. I don't think she's going to pay off her salary because Angela Hill's takedown defense has been worked on pretty well over the years, and she is very tough. She's actually never been knocked out in a fight. So I think this is going to go to decision. I think the best way to probably play this is the Angela Hill significant strikes line, which is, I believe is I have it in my article, but I believe it's in the 50s. I think it's 58. And she's hit that in 6 of her last 7. So I think that would be the way to play it if you want to play it. But I think you're going to get sort of a decision here from Fatima Klein, a pretty comprehensive decision victory. And for 95 for that price, unlike the other one where I think there's some merits to it, to the pay up, I don't find many merits to this one. I will be passing on Klein for 95. If you think that, Angela Hill can sort of bully her around and grab the clinch, I don't really see it. But this is the best opponent Klein's face. Klein, well, not the best opponent she's faced. It will be the best opponent she's beaten. Let's say that. So if you do find that maybe a skilled kickboxer, Muay Thai fighter can get the job done, Hill's a veteran, maybe take a shot. It's not for me. This is pretty much a pass. So as I'm concerned, but the pick is Klein. But we're going to go to, I believe, Joe first. Joe, how you see it?
Okay, so quick Angela Hill story.
Please.
Angela Hill, by virtue of being put in a standing guillotine by Rose Namajunas way back, I think 2015, in the tough finale, actually won me a trip to go see a legendary card in Orlando and get to sit next to and meet Frank Mir. And that was because of Angela Hill getting choked out by Rose Namajunas. And that card in Orlando it's turned out to be like a Legends card. Like everybody was on that card. Valentina made her debut. Ngannou, Usman, Nate Diaz. Like that was just like a master card back in Orlando. So I do have fond memories of Angela Hill for that reason. However, age is tough. And I think she's 40 or close to 40. Fatima Klein is a training partner of Erin Blanchfield. So this is essentially a local fight. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. Well, I remember you telling me you were at that card. Yeah, that was an amazing card. Anyway, she's a training partner of Erin Blanchfield, Jersey girl, local fight. Like, I don't want any part of this for DFS, in all honesty, because I do think that Hill is going to be tough enough to survive. So I really don't see this scoring highly. So if you're going to play this in DFS, I'd look at it as more of a contrarian type of play. But honestly, I can't see paying up, for Fatima Klein. And I don't think Hill is going to win. But I do see this going to decision. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't see this as a great fight for DFS. But I would pick Klein to win.
Yeah, it's not a DFS. If it's not a DFS fight. Maybe for cash, Angela Hill at 67 can get you 45 or something in a loss, and maybe you can skate it that way. You'd be cutting a little close, but that might be one thing you're looking at potentially. But Drake, what about you? What do you see this fight?
I think the 40-year-old Hill gets her first knockout loss.
Oh, you do think she gets knocked out?
I think this is a horrible matchup for her, and I think she just gets clobbered. I'm looking at a head kick to ground and pound. Good night.
Wow, that's that. Well, that I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm sure that's pretty juiced up on the line if you want to go for that. That would be something. I don't know. I mean, we haven't even seen Angela Hill hurt all that much from my recollection, so that would be something. That would be it's always interesting the first time a fighter who's never been knocked out gets knocked out. It doesn't quite feel real in the moment. So that would be interesting to see for sure. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be a Fatima Klein on that price. So if Drake is all over that, that could break the slate for him. Absolutely. But right now we're going to move on to the next fight, and it is Pat Sabatini at 8,300 taking on Chepe Mariscal at 7,900. Line on this fight, it is Sabatini at minus 118. Mariscal coming back at minus 102. And note that these two did fight earlier in their career. CFFC 2018 split decision. It went kind of as expected. Well, not as you expected, but as one potential version of this fight might look, which is there was a lot of grappling exchanges. It was pretty close, and it was a split decision win for Chepe Mariscal. I went ahead and picked Sabatini this time around anyway. I just think that his kind of gung-ho, get the takedown, wrap it up, is going to get to Mariscal, especially since Mariscal doesn't really defensively doesn't really try to defend takedowns as much as he tries to counter throw a lot. And I think that's going to get him in trouble. I think that's going to get him to the ground. Scrambles in this fight are going to be interesting. We could end up with a grimy kind of split decision again. Joey with the definitive take there. Sabatini by sub or decision. I think that, or sub or decision. So we'll see how that one goes. But we could be looking at another grimy kind of fight. I just think Sabatini's control against other good wrestlers has been really cool to watch. His top control, the way he just smothers and pressures. And I think this time around, Sabatini might just have a little more for him. So my pick is going to be Sabatini. We're going to go to Drake. Drake, how you see it?
Bet of the week's on this fight.
Oh, is it Chepe? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I cannot wait for this fight because I think it's going to be absolutely just completely intense. Both of these guys fight with that tenacity. I think the biggest difference in this fight is Chepe just does not quit at all. I've seen Sabatini kind of, I don't want to say quit, but I've seen him kind of, slow down when, things start to get tough. Chepe is not going to let him get anywhere. I absolutely love him in this fight.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's we have seen Sabatini slow down and get tired. Chepe will fight. I just think that the ground control time is gonna mount up as at least early, and then have Sabatini bank a little bit until maybe Chepe kind of evens it out. But if he has trouble controlling from the beginning, then definitely not a good sign for our friend Sabatini. Joe, how do you see this fight?
I think the first time they fought, it was a split decision win for Sabatini, right? So
For Mariscal.
yeah, what's interesting here is there's a bet that I like on this fight. You can play Sabatini by submission or Chepe by knockout and get plus 165. So I'm actually putting that bet in plus 165. I like that play because honestly, I think those are the two most likely outcomes. I am going to pick Mariscal here for the upset. I also think that there's some line value on DraftKings based on where the current odds are right now.
You guys know Chepe's never been submitted before, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and I think he's a pretty decent grappler in his own right.
Yes, he's got 3 submissions.
He's definitely better standing. Sabatini looks lost. Like, I haven't seen him improve his stand-up in any, like, progressively in any of his fights. So, look, he's obviously got a path to victory, which we know what his path to victory is, but he's so one-dimensional that I'm going to chase the line value here, and I'm going to take Sabatini as a slight dog as it relates to wagering, but I also think he could be a really good DraftKings play at his price. I think he's going to be pretty popular. I think he's going to be fairly highly owned, especially if the line starts to narrow up. But really give some thought to that bet. You get plus 165, and you have two outcomes, which I think are more likely than not as to how the fight's going to end. You get Chepe by knockout, and you get Sabatini by submission, and you're getting plus 165. So I really like that bet.
Yeah, no, that is an interesting bet contained in itself there. I agree. Sabatini is one note. I just what he's done with that in the UFC has impressed me. So I'm going to stick with it, and I definitely, as Drake said, think this is going to be an intense kind of nip and tuck fight until maybe the third round, if it gets there, and then we'll see who comes out on top. But right now, we're going to go to our next fight, and that is Kyle Daukaus at 9,300 taking on Gerald Meerschaert at 6,900. Line on this fight: Kyle Daukaus minus 550, Gerald Meerschaert plus 420. Of course, Kyle Daukaus re-enters the UFC in a big way, knocking out Michel Pereira just seconds into the first round.
Chris, I think he was 7K in that fight, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, he was a big underdog. Did play him, but that was more just candidly, it was just more on the fact that I hate Michel Pereira, and it did work out. But this one, look, I feel like, especially the last one before his knockout loss to Mikhail Olenjacek, I feel like I start every GM3 introduction the same way, which I like him. I like guys like him who get victories they have no business getting, making a lot out of a little with the skill set. But I think his time is pretty much up. I mean, he looked very slow in that Olenjacek fight. The takedowns looked very labored even in the first round. And part of this Kyle Daukaus resurgence in other organizations has been more emphasis on striking and more aggression. So I don't think that Gerald has really that much of a shot here. I think that Daukaus could be like an easy 100+ points with a knockout. I don't think he'll submit GM3. I think he's gonna surprise him and just knock him out. We've seen that happen throughout his career, not just the last fight. The one against Chimaev, obviously. The one against I thought I had the name. Another wrestler who is no longer here. Give me 1 second. Ian Heinisch. Ian Heinisch was the other one. Actually, those were back to back, which is which is interesting. The Chimaev and Heinisch one. So we've seen GM3 get caught cold early, and certainly not getting any better as he gets older here. So my pick is Daukaus in a big way, and I think we're going to start with Joe here yet again. Joe, how you see it?
Yeah, so if it isn't like obvious already, I'm going to have a lot of bets down on this card, and that means I'm going to have either a really good night or a really bad night. I don't really see a middle ground here. And I hate to say that any line is a gift, and the line was actually better earlier in the week, but you could get Kyle Daukaus by knockout at plus 175.
Yeah.
DraftKings Sportsbook is giving out a 30% UFC profit boost that you have to use on a finish prop. So, and I think they vary based on what your level is, how much they'll allow you to max bet. So my max bet is 250. So I max bet 250 with a 30% boost on Kyle Daukaus by knockout. I think Chris commented on, look, GM3 is a great, what I call lunch pail fighter, but his path to victory is essentially getting hit, not getting finished, and getting tired, getting his opponent tired, and then taking advantage of that via a late sub. But he's just been getting tagged early recently, and I would not be surprised if he left his gloves in the octagon after getting knocked out by Kyle Daukaus here. I don't think Kyle Daukaus is the greatest fighter in the world, but I think he's quick enough on his feet and showed that he could knock out Pereira. If he can knock out Pereira, he could certainly finish GM3. So, by knockout, plus 175. I mean, obviously, I would have liked to have betted at plus 250, which is where it was earlier in the week, but I'll take the plus 175. I'll take Kyle Daukaus in GPPs. I'm hoping for an early finish. But, betting him straight, he's close to 5-1 now. Not a lot.
He's 550. I see on the line.
Okay,
I mean,
so
it varies, but 550.
Okay, so I mean, look, obviously he's a parlay piece. I think our good friend Joey, I don't want to bury his lead, but I think our good friend Joey has got him in a parlay with someone else who, unfortunately, I don't really like all that much. But, I think you could use him as a parlay piece. I do see him getting the finish. I do see him getting the finish by knockout. I like plus 175. Kyle Daukaus, go.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think the man to my right will agree too. Drake, how you see his fight?
Yeah, I don't have much to say on this. Mearshard's at the end of the line. He's fun to watch, but it's at some point you kind of just have to hang it up and accept that you can't do it anymore. He's got no chin. He's going to get tagged once. He's going to get tagged twice, and then he's going to be done. I expect a first round finish, and Daukaus is going to look better than he is.
Yeah, more or less. Funny to look back now and say that it wasn't all that long ago he went nip and tuck with Rainier de Ridder in that fight, and that if that one goes a different way, then maybe his prospects do too. But I think that has to be the consensus there. Joey says Daukaus said this minus 135. I don't really like that as much because I don't think you're going to submit Gerald Mearshard. Not that you can't, but it needs to be like later in a fight where he's worn down, and you're certainly not going to do that early. So if it gets that late, I actually give Mearshard more of a chance because he likes to work his way into fights. I like the knockout prop a little better. Future Plays says Islam be around 1 or round 2 sub. Thank you so much for watching. We'll definitely get to the fight later, and definitely something that could be. I think the earlier that Islam gets it, it will be more advantageous for him with the more weight put on and all that. But again, we will get to the main event coming up a little later. But right now, we're going to move on to a late addition to the card that was, in fact, just added yesterday. It is Malcolm Wellmaker at 8,400 taking on Ethan Ewing at 6,800. Line on this fight, it is minus 410. Malcolm Wellmaker, Ethan Ewing plus 310. And this is a fight, again, that was just recently made. Wellmaker's original opponent broke his foot, I believe, on weigh-in day, and so a new fighter was having to be made here. I actually had my pick was Haddon going into the fight. It was close, but just sort of liked some of the things he offered, and I still don't think Malcolm Wellmaker's game is that deep. I picked him in his first 2 fights just because he had opponents that are just going to walk after him. He's a boxer who's very slick, very powerful, a very lean back counter shot, and he tells opponents like that. He's very good at it. I think he's going to have similar success here with Ethan Ewing, who likes to walk forward. Is a boxer who will pressure, but I don't think that pressure is going to lead to much. I think Wellmaker has a very good chance to catch him out again, especially this fight on short notice. I think that was going to give Ewing some incentive to start out hot, and I don't think that's going to be good for him here. Wellmaker, don't get me wrong, he's very athletic. He's got a lot of tools, but he's just not going to be pressed here in the way that I thought Haddon would press him. I think this is going to be another easy win for him. I hope he gets a quality opponent after this. Ethan Ewing, a guy who just won I forget the name of it. I think it's A1C. It's Uriah Faber's promotion. He just won an interim title there, I believe, with a knockout. Comes here 6 days later. All credit to him, but I don't think he's going to be quite ready for this assignment here. But we'll see what the boys think. Drake, how you see this fight?
I hope this doesn't turn into a situation where Ewing comes in and he just blows up the whole slate.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen. It sucks when it happens because he goes like 2% owned and then he just murders everything. I fortunately don't think that's going to be the case. I really like Wellmaker in this matchup. I actually liked Wellmaker against Haddon as well. So I think his game is going to grow and it's going to continue to grow. He does grapple. We haven't really seen it. I would like to see it. I was looking forward to seeing him do it with Haddon, but always the next fight. But yeah, I'm all over Wellmaker. I think at 8,400, it's a steal, and unfortunately, so will everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it should be mentioned. It's 8,400. Oh, did I read the line there? I'm not sure that I did. Now that you mentioned it there, Drake, or got me thinking about it. So let me go ahead and read that now because it is to the point I was about to make. It is Wellmaker minus 410 and Ewing plus 310, and that does speak to the point of that 8,400. I mean, if you're looking at a guy generally minus 410, he's going to be in the 93, 94, 9500 range. So you're getting Wellmaker at a huge discount here. Again, that's not inside baseball. Everybody who plays is going to pick up on that, or the large majority of people. But I do think that Wellmaker does have the tools to get this done. Just be forewarned that he's going to be highly owned. So, if you're going to play him, I would recommend leaning well into him to get ahead of that field, which is going to have him pretty substantially. What about you, Joe? How do you see it?
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting because I saw a Twitter soundbite with Wellmaker. He was talking about his original fight being canceled, and essentially thanking, his new opponent for stepping up. And he said, "I know nothing about this guy. I know absolutely nothing about this guy." And look, I think Wellmaker's good. He's got a good left hand, right? He's, sometimes you see these guys that come into the UFC and, they look good in a couple fights, like Terrence McKinney. And they kind of peak. And I think, how old is Wellmaker? I think he's like 30 or 31 or
he's
something.
31.
31. Okay. So it's not like he's a kid, right? Like, I get it, right? He's looked really good in the UFC. And my fear is that you've got this guy coming in with nothing to lose. He's doing the UFC a favor, right? Again, okay, minor promotion, right? Uriah Faber. This guy has got to be loose as can be coming in, right? I hate the fact that this guy is going to be 40, 50% owned, Wellmaker. And people are going to be building lineups around him. Gosh, I'm going to still pick him to win, but I will tell you that whatever the market is on the opponent, I'm going to have more.
Yeah.
Just because, to Drake's point, he could literally blow up the entire slate, right? He can blow up the entire slate, and we've seen it happen before, right? I'm also with Drake where I don't think it will happen here, but like I've got to protect myself. I mean, I'm going to play 150 lineups in the $3 contest, and I'm going to want some exposure just because if that happens, I don't want it to end my day.
We also don't know if another one of James Krause's boys is going to be, wagering.
Yeah, that's
we didn't talk about Bulgarian. I had quite a bit of exposure to Bulgarian. You know what I got? You know how like William Hill and I believe MGM gave back. You know what DraftKings did? I got $100 DK dollars.
Oh,
which nowhere didn't come close to compensating me for the amount of exposure that I had on.
I'm surprised you got anything because people were posting conversations where they were like, "We're not giving anything." So
I think it was my host appeasing me. Like,
okay,
let's throw this guy $100 DK dollars. Like they could pretty much do that anytime.
Yeah,
so just said, okay, we'll give this guy something to shut him up, right? But I had a lot. Now, again, it didn't hurt as bad as it could have because I also had a lot of the Bulgarian bets tied to, Tarumbo, who did not do really well against Emmers. So it didn't hurt as badly as it would have, but I did have a lot of exposure to Bulgarian.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you, and I'm glad that situation is behind us, but it is like the specter that is haunting the UFC now. Like every time something seems out of place, we're gonna be like, oh. Whereas before it'd be like, oh, you're imagining things. Like I sent an old tweet of if anybody remembers Oluwale Bamboje, who was in the organization a few years ago. After he got cut, he went on a little Twitter screed and. One of his last tweets was like Herb Dean, essentially accusing Herb Dean of misdeeds as it pertains to betting. And it's like, was he just mad and talking, or was he talking? And of course, we don't know.
Well, we're going off on a tangent here, Chris, but like what UFC fighters get paid at the entry level is criminal.
Yeah.
It's literally criminal. Like the basic UFC contract is 12 and 12. Right? Like, and maybe if you do well, you get a performance of the night bonus. But let's say you don't. Let's say you win three fights in your first year and your first contract. And that's saying something because not all these guys get to fight 3 times in a year, right? And let's say you win all 3 fights. You're talking 3 times 24,000, right? Which is 72,000 by my math. Now that's gross. You've got to pay your coach. You've got to pay your gym, right? Like you got to pay taxes. Right? Like these guys have to work second jobs, right? Like it's criminal what these guys get paid on their entry level contracts. So I'm not saying it's right, but like it's kind of easy to see how they could get tempted, you know? Like I get it. Someone says, hey, I'll give you 70,000 and you don't even have to lose the fight. You just have to like slow it down or like whatever. Right, I could see that happening to these guys.
Well, it's like what's happening to Emmanuel Clase now with the first pitches. Guys get it into their head probably like, hey, well, I'm not throwing the game, and to that point, Emmanuel Clase was an amazing pitcher for the time he was on the mound. But
and our basketball player making millions of dollars a year, but knocking down a couple $100K for like props for pulling himself out of the game. I mean, geez, like there's so much you could bet on these days that you don't actually literally have to throw a fight or throw a game or throw a match, to make money. So and
I want to be clear, of course, not alleging anybody is in particular doing anything wrong. It just that it's always going to be in the back of your mind now, but. We put it past ourselves, at least for right now, although I do think it's interesting that the UFC just partnered with Polymarket, which is the European betting market there. But, kind of is not as encouraging as you might like it to be in the wake of all this, but what can you do? We will get out of that detour and we will move on to the next fight now. And it is Erin Blanchfield at 9,000 taking on Tracy Cortez at 7,200. Line on this fight is Blanchfield minus 250, Cortez plus 210. And this is a fight where I'm not sure how Cortez is going to get a foothold. She's a wrestler who can be taken down by other wrestlers, and Blanchfield certainly is that. I think she's going to be the more physically imposing presence here. I think she's going to be the more active volume striker. I think she's going to be the one to hit harder. And I think 9,000 is actually a pretty good price for her, just based on her striking volume and her offensive wrestling and grappling. Cortez is scrappy, can sort of get in the face of her opponents and work her wrestling, but I just don't think it's going to work well in a matchup against Blanchfield here. So my pick is Blanchfield in a big way in this spot, but we will see what the boys think, and we're going to Joe first. Thank you for the signal every time because I do forget. Joe, how do you see this fight?
Yeah, so Blanchfield arguably beat Tracy Cortez in Invicta at 19 years old. It was a split decision. It was a very close fight. Could have gone either way. Blanchfield was 19. Like when I saw that fight, that's when because I used to watch Invicta a lot when Invicta was on Fight Pass and when they were kind of aligned with the UFC as sort of a feeder for female fighters. And I watched her and I'm like, wow, this girl is really good. So not only is this like a local fight for Blanchfield, who's a New Jersey girl, I think I said it before. I think she's improved where Cortez has remained pretty flat. Like Cortez is a very infrequent fighter. She typically doesn't fight more than once a year. And I just don't think she's gotten any better. I mean, Blanchfield has fought a better quality competition. She held her own. She didn't win, but she held her own with Thea Rowe. Thea Rowe would destroy Tracy Cortez. So I think I like Blanchfield more as a bet than I do in DFS. And I think I like her by decision because I think it probably will go to decision. But I definitely like Erin Blanchfield a fair bit here. And I think she's a really solid parlay piece. And again, I wouldn't say don't play her in DFS. I see her maybe more of a safety cash type play than as a GPP play, just because I think there's going to be some really high scores here. And Blanchfield's last two fights, if you look at her scores, her last two fights were 5-round fights. So I don't know if you're going to get like 12x in a 3-round fight if it goes to decision. So I do love Blanchfield. I do like her more as a bet than in DFS, but I think she rolls here and go Jersey.
Yeah, I could see on the high side 95, 96, 94. I don't think that's impossible. And could that do it on a 14-fight side? I think it could. I like her. I like her security, though. I do like her security, and so maybe she would be a better cash play for that purpose. But we'll see what Drake thinks. Drake, how you see this fight?
Yeah, I love Blanchfield in this one. I do wish that it was also 5 rounds because I don't think she gets a finish, but I think she can do well enough in 3 rounds. Cortez does like to pressure a little, and I think it's actually going to get her caught and caught by tripped. And I think Blanchfield can either just chain the takedowns or she's just going to control for 10 minutes plus. I think this could be a really good spot to target Blanchfield. And I would not actually be surprised to see her mount and finish Cortez.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. Actually, I think Blanchfield's in a good spot here, and I think she could get overlooked in her placement in the card and the matchup in general. So definitely want to look for if you're looking for, because that 9,000 flat, little bit cheaper than some of the other options, and could potentially bring home, like I said, maybe the high 90s, maybe even a little touch higher. So definitely one to look at, I think. But we're gonna move on once again, and we are at. Sorry, there we are. We are at Gregory Rodriguez at 8,600 taking on Roman Kopylov at 7,600. Line on this fight, Rodriguez minus 185, Kopylov plus 160. Kind of went back and forth on this fight. Ultimately settled on Rodriguez just for the aggression and the fact that Kopylov's wrestling isn't. I mean, we have seen him go to it in the past. I don't think he will go to it here, or if he does, it'll be inadvisable. And I just think the aggression of RoboCop is going to get it done here. The fact that Kopylov is hittable. RoboCop is hittable too. We've seen him be hurt, which was my hesitation. We know how accurate and pinpoint Kopylov can be, but I just think that if someone is going to storm out the other, I think Rodriguez is the guy to do that, and he does have the wrestling in his back pocket. I know that Kopylov is at the 90% takedown defense there. I would say that Rodriguez is probably strong enough to maybe just muscle a couple of those home if he wants to. So we'll see how that goes. A tricky little spot, but I did come down on the side of Rodriguez, and that is my pick for this fight. But we will see what the boys think. And this time, I know that we were starting with Drake. So, Drake, how do you see it?
This was another close one for my bet of the week, and I almost went with Kopylov. I love him in this fight. Rodriguez gets opened up so easily.
He does do that.
And Kopylov hits so hard. I don't think that RoboCop is going to go for the takedowns right away. I think he's going to get beaten up and blistered, and I think he gets knocked out. I love Kopylov in this spot.
Yeah, no, we have seen it in a number of his fights. He gets hurt before he comes back, and guy who hits hard enough, maybe will not get a chance to come back. Definitely a possibility. What about you, Joe? Joe, how you see it?
I'm on Rodriguez here. I like that this is a 3-round fight and not a 5-round fight. I don't see Rodriguez. I don't see RoboCop as a 5-round fighter, as we saw against Jared Cannonier. I think he can hurt Kopylov. I mean, I really do. I take your point on him getting opened up. I just think he's gonna be really aggressive and get inside really quickly, and put some hurt on him. Look, I could see him winning 2 or 3 rounds, but I actually see RoboCop by finish here. So we both have opposing sides. In deference to Drake, I will play some Kopylov in some of my lineups, but I like him to win here, and I would not be at all surprised if he won by finish.
I'm telling you, RoboCop's gonna get murdered in this fight.
RoboCop is.
You've been right more than I have on your hot takes, so I'll definitely consider that as I put my.
Are you saying Rodriguez is going to need to be reassembled after this fight?
He might be
back on the street.
Instead of one cut here, it might be here.
Yeah. No, possibly. Maybe they'll have to build him a visor that he'll have to look out of. You never know. But I'm actually more on Joe's side here. I take Drake's point as well. I think it's going to be. I think it could go either way. But I just like. I think the aggression of RoboCop early is something I'm going to lean on here. But definitely a good fight, good action fight that we will have to see how it plays out. But now we will go to a fight that was actually kicked off of this main card. So. Take that, Bo Nickel. It is Bo Nickel at 9,100, taking on Rodolfo Vieira at 7,100. Line on this fight is Bo Nickel at minus 220, Rodolfo Vieira plus 185. And I alluded to this in my article, but like if you're taking Bo Nickel against competent competition these days, I have to imagine that you're like the kind of person who goes to the grocery store and you see the Entenmann's donuts, and then you see the regular donuts, and the Entenmann's donuts are more expensive, and you go, oh, I like that Entenmann's taste, and you buy the Entenmann's donuts. You're paying for branding at this point with Bo Nickel. We've seen him fight 2 high-level jiu-jitsu players in the UFC. One, he had a really lackluster decision win against in Paul Craig. The other, he got devastatingly knocked out, dropped with a body shot by Rainier de Ritter. And then he has some can knockouts on the contenders. Well, actually, it was a club and top of the contender series, and then he knocked out some Val Woodburn. I can't even believe I remember that name. Val Woodburn he knocked him out. I know our friend Joey disagrees. Joey, I went back and watched that Paul Craig fight. His striking looked really bad. It was a lot of just throwing my shoulder out of the socket overhands. And look, I'm not saying that Vieira, his striking is great, but and I do want to remind somebody on our panel here that I'm not sure for this fight, but I know he was working with the Fighting Nerds, at least for his last fight against Tresean Gore. I'm not saying his striking is amazing now. I think it's becoming well put together for what he is. Like you see in that Tresean Gore fight, jab to the body, double jab overhand, jab to a takedown. He's becoming very economical for what he's not going to become the best striker ever, but he's learning how to strike for his skill set. And he tried a lot of takedowns in that fight against Tresean Gore. Tresean Gore stuffed a lot of them, and his gas tank was fine in that third round. So all of that taken together, I just don't know how Bo Nickel wins this fight. Unless we come in and we see a much improved Bo Nickel in the striking, which I suppose we could. We see big leaps from guys all the time, but he's been here a while now, and this has been who he is for a long time. And so, I mean, he's not going to want to take down Vieira early. He shouldn't want to anyway. So it's going to have to be late in the fight when he's roughed him up, and I just don't see it happening. Vieira is the more athletic fighter, so I think by quite a ways. So I just don't know how you can put any trust in Bo Nickel at this point. I have not. Maybe he comes in and shocks me, and I just have to eat it, and we see him as a contender again. But for me right now, I have no trust in Bo Nickel whatsoever, and I'll see what the boys think here. But Joe, what do you think? You trusting Bo Nickel, or are you more on my side where he's got to show it to you again?
No, I'm totally on your side, and I got some narrative to share, and I always like to give props to, one of the things I really like about doing the show at 8 p.m. on a Friday is we get to absorb information from a lot of different sources, which can both be good or bad. And two of my favorite Canadians, Paul and Cody, who do Bookie Beatdown. Cody had some very interesting narrative on this fight, which I knew some of, but some I didn't. Bo Nickel got a 6-fight contract when he signed with the UFC. That is very unusual. And it was pretty incentive laden, and he is fairly high paid. Obviously they wanted to market him and market him as an ambassador for the UFC. Obviously, wrestler, D1, speaks English, decent looking guy. This is the last fight on his contract. He has been taking wrestling matches. He got bumped from the main card to the prelims.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going through his head. I love narrative. Like I really do. I don't think this is a particularly good matchup for him. I'm with the dog here. I'm with the dog. Obviously we know what you know what you get, when you play Vieira, you know what you're getting. But I just can't get behind Bo Nickel with all that narrative. Last fight of his contract, taking wrestling matches. Is he going to even re-sign with the UFC? Where does he go? I mean, his striking hasn't really gotten better at all. I mean, I think with Woolburn, he just hit him with a lucky shot. I have to go with Vieira here. There's definitely some value in playing him in GPPs. I would not touch this fight in cash. So I'm leaning towards your side here, Chris, with the dog. That's going to be my official pick.
Joey, I just RDR. I mean, you can say all that now, but I mean, did Nickel even look that good against Cody Brundage? I mean, he ended up winning the fight, but the first round didn't go that well for him. He got shucked off one of the takedowns. Could he land a big shot? We've seen he has some power, I guess, but so Vieira doesn't get deaded.
Also, I got to ask Joey if he knew any of that narrative I just spouted. Did he know that this was Bo Nickel's last fight on his contract? Did he know he's been taking wrestling matches? Does that not change his pick at all?
While he's typing that out, I'll just go ahead and give my take. And I am going to go with the pick that I wanted to begin with, which is Vieira. I asked Joey when I was writing my article, I was like, talk me out of Vieira. Because I was like, I don't trust Nickel in the slightest. And so I let him do that. And that's how I wrote up my article. And I don't want to stick with it. So I'm going with Vieira because I don't think Nickel is all that great.
So what did Joey say that convinced you initially to change?
Oh man. It was basically what he's saying in the chat. He just thought that it was a good spot for him to rebound. I don't think it's in there anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I would love for Nickel to, to be everything the UFC thought he was going to be, but I just don't think he's that guy.
Yeah, he could be. He has to show it to us. I don't see how you pick him as a big favorite until he shows it to us. I just even Joey kind of admits here it's a vibe. It's a TKO vibe. Okay, I've vibed before. We've all vibed. It's fun to vibe, but like if you're looking at it from an X's and O's, I just don't see it there. It could happen, and if it does, again we'll have to reevaluate. But until and as such, in the words of Tony Soprano. But we will move on now to the main card and wall-to-wall bangers on here, if I do say so. And it does start with Benoit Saint-Denis, 8,800, taking on Beneil Dariush, 7,400. Line on this fight is Dariush. I'm sorry, Denis at minus 180. Dariush coming back plus 155. Should mention here 1.5 pound weight miss for Beneil Dariush, which kind of makes me go, Dariush is older. To me, that signals a bit more of a red flag than it would if a younger guy missed weight by that amount. Still, I'm going to stick with the pick, and it is Dariush. Now, I fully recognize and understand that he could just get trucked here. Saint-Denis can just come out hot and knock him out. Dariush almost feels almost like he wants to test himself. He gets caught cold a lot, going all the way back to Alexander Hernandez, going up to Charles Oliveira, going back to Jakar Close. Sometimes he survives, sometimes he doesn't. It's 3-2 survive. I went back and counted it. I think it's 3-2 survive, but it is still a touch and go thing. And even the Moicano fight that we just saw. But if he does survive, what we did see is he's still one of the best scramblers, pound for pound in the sport. Like there's no question about it. He just gets to the position before you. And Benoit Saint-Denis, a guy who likes to wrestle anyway, he's just not going to be any match for Beneil Dariush on the ground, I don't think. So if he can withstand that initial onslaught, and I would say just don't get yourself backed up. Even if they're striking in space, I'll like it a little bit more. But Dariush just can't get himself backed up, and I think he's going to be okay. If Dariush gets to the wrestling, I think it's over. And for this amount of savings, I think it makes Dariush a really attractive player. Again, could just get absolutely steamrolled, and nobody should be surprised if it happens. But I'm not going to pick it on that narrow of a margin, especially for the favorite. I am going to go for Dariush here. But we're going to stick with Joe here for the first fight on the main card. Joe, how you see it?
Yeah. Does anybody know if Dariush has ever missed weight before?
I was thinking that. I don't think so. At least
I can't recall him ever missing weight. And that really concerns me.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with Dariush, and this is a recurring sentiment here, that he's got a lot of other things going on. I believe, he owns the gym, a UFC gym in Orange County. He's made some money, obviously. The fact that he actually missed weight is very disturbing to me.
Yeah.
On the other side, I heard some narrative again from my two favorite Canadians about how Saint-Denis turned down several opponents in his last fight before he essentially was given Profilac. He turned down Gamrot and he turned down Rebecki, which I get, but I don't know how good BSD is. I think he could start. Look, we've seen people like Alex Hernandez starch, Beneil. I picked BSD, I believe, on Tuesday when we submitted our picks, and I'm going to stay with that pick. I'll have some shares of Benny, but I'm very concerned about the weight miss. He's always been a very professional fighter. Again, the narrative with everything else he has going on. I'm gonna stay with BSD here, but it's not a super confident pick, and I don't know if I would like parlay either one of these guys. But I'll probably have some shares of each. Maybe I'll be at market, whatever that is, in DFS, but I'm going to stick with BSD.
Yeah, I've never been somebody who changes picks based on weigh-ins, because I always think that guys fighters rehydrate, and then they look fine. But again, a guy who, at the very least, seldom misses, if we can't recall every fight.
But what about Bonfim last week? I mean, that was like...
Yeah, no, see, that's right. But at 36 with this many fights, it makes you go more than it might ordinarily. So something to keep in mind. But the pick for me is still Benny. Drake, how you see it?
He did miss one other time, the Holtzman fight back in 2020, but that was
okay. Yeah,
that one was much less of a concern than this one is.
Yeah.
That said, I think this fight is just purely GPP. I think we all know I'm not the biggest fan of Dariush, especially just the way that 2023 into 2024 went. He did look really great in his last fight against Makhachev. And the big concern with BSD was those two fights that he had lost to, Moicano and Poirier, and that staph infection that he had, and whether or not it actually infected or affected the way that he fought. If we go by what fighters say, and that was true, and that did give him problems with that fight, then the last two fights with Prepelic and Rufi allowed him to kind of get back to the path that he was on. And if that is the case, then I think he does steamroll Dariush. That is the play that I'm going to stick with. I think that he has a lot more ways to win this fight, and I do think that he actually is stronger than Dariush, which is not going to help Dariush's grappling. But yeah, after watching BSD just completely destroy one of my fighting nerds, it's really hard not to go with him after that.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think it's funny. I think Dariush could show up this time the way we thought he was going to show up last time against Moicano. I do think that's a possibility, but it's not enough for me to switch the pick, but it is something that I will that has me on alert. Let me just say that much. But right now we're going to move on to the next fight, and it is Carlos Prates at 8,900 taking on Leon Rocky Edwards 7,300. Line on the fight is excuse me, I was looking at some props. It is Prates at -163, Edwards at +143, and this is not a good matchup for Edwards at this stage in his career. I do not think. Edwards, I think since the Covington fight, I would say, has been doing less and less and less in fights, and he had every advantage over Covington, and just Covington actually seemed to get better as that fight went on, and then he just kind of he was always kind of a negative fighter, always kind of a guy who would he would counterpunch you, and then if you tried to wrestle him, he could out wrestle you. So that was really the thing. But against Sean Brady, he just kind of looked like he wasn't interested, quite frankly. There were just things that he could have done to win the fight that he sort of wasn't fighting in the way he should, and then he went for an offensive takedown, and it was all just kind of a mess. I do think that he has some tools that could bother Prates here. Of course, the wrestling. He is able to angle off and fire a shot, but he just backs himself against the fence way too often. He's just way too inactive, and I can't trust it for a guy who's just going to roll downhill like Carlos Prates. So Drake thinks that Angela Hill is going to get her first knockout loss, and I will join that parade. I think Leon Edwards takes his first knockout loss.
Oh, and I'm glad I'm first because I am right there with you.
Yeah.
Aside from Prates being a fighting nerd.
Yeah, I just can't see it any other way. If I trusted that Edwards could come out and look alive in this fight, I might see it another way. But I just think he's going to hand all the initiative to Carlos Prates, and you can't do that against a guy this dangerous. I don't think he's going to be like an active wrestler here. That might change things up a little bit. But I think he's going to want to try to get going, and I don't think he's going to be allowed to do that. So he's talking a good game, saying all the right things at Fight Week here, but I just can't trust it, and I'm going Carlos Pratas to do the job. But we're going to start with Drake this time. Drake, how you see it?
Oh, I love this matchup for Prates. I said after the Ian Gary fight that if Prates is going to lose any more fights, it's going to be because he does not have enough action, which is how he lost that Gary fight. And he came out and publicly said that. So what did he do? He came out against Jeff Neal, and there was a plenty of people backing Neal in that fight, and he just piss pounded him.
Yeah.
I think this is a much easier matchup going against Edwards than Neal. And I don't know, I'll stand by that. I think Prates is gold in this fight.
Yeah, no, so do I. I really think Edwards is just not in the space in his career to trouble a fighter like Prates right now. Joe, what about you? How you see it?
Yeah, so look, Edwards does have a path to victory here, and there is money coming in on Edwards, by the way. He's plus 136 now. There's money coming in on Edwards. I also want to mention that he has brought in some new coaches. He wasn't happy with the coaching he was getting. He definitely looks in shape for this fight, but then again, he pretty much looks in shape for every fight. I do believe that he will wrestle, and if he wrestles, I think Prates will have a problem. Now, the question is, Prates, who, smokes a pack of Marlboro a day, not quite that much, I think he has to get him early. So I could I think there's some real line value. I believe Edwards is 7.2K. Is that correct?
Edwards is, what did I say? Edwards is 7.3K.
7.3. Okay. I picked Edwards. I won't backtrack off that pick. I understand what you guys are saying. I'm going to have a lot of shares of Prates. I know, look, he's got knockout equity. But I do see a path for victory for Edwards if he does decide to wrestle. And I honestly think that if he doesn't, it's going to be an early night for him. And I love yours and Drake's take. But I do think he will try to get his wrestling going to the extent that he can. And he can take Prates down. Prates is not a great wrestler. So I'll stick with Edwards. I'll stick with that as my pick. But I'm endorsing playing both sides in DFS.
I also think, let's say Edwards does do that and he fails on the first one. I think he's just gonna give up.
And Prates has 84% takedown defense. It's not like he's a bum.
Yeah, no, not a bum. I will say I think that Edwards, his wrestling and scrambling has always been, I think, the most underrated part of his game. But I really do think at this point, I don't see him doing a concerted game where he just goes and goes and goes, especially if he gets stopped initially. I just can't trust where he's at. But I agree there's a path, and I agree that one time this would have been an interesting matchup, but I just don't see it at this point. But we shall see. But right now we have another fight before the co-main event. It is Sean Brady, 8,500. Mike Morales, 7,700. Line on this fight. Brady minus 132. Morales plus 112. And I just can't get over the reach discrepancy here, which I believe is 8 inches, 7 or 8 inches. Sean Brady never faced a reach disadvantage to this extent. And I just don't know how he's going to make it to the inside. We know how hard Michael Morales hits. Now working with Bilal Muhammad, funnily enough. So that's going to be interesting as far as the anti-wrestling goes. Michael Morales with a bit of a wrestling background himself. Certainly wouldn't be the grappler of a Sean Brady, but we've seen Sean Brady kind of get discouraged before in fights. He's kind of gotten over that of late, but I think a fight like this where he's having trouble getting on the inside is maybe just the kind of fight to discourage him again. I just think Morales is too big and hits too hard and is too athletic for Sean Brady to get his game going. If he does get in and get a takedown early, that'll show us something. But my pick has to be Morales, just for the early kind of tag knockout here. So that is the play for me. But right now we are going to go to Joe. Joe, how you see this fight?
Yeah, I'm going to take a shot with Morales as well. I think he offers some real line value. Obviously Brady's pretty good. I would advise playing both sides in GPPs. Obviously Brady can win. Brady's equity is on the ground. So I do see, although Morales is not a horrible wrestler. He is, I think, a black belt in judo, if not jiu-jitsu. But I like the way he strikes. I like that he's 7.8K. So I'm going to take a shot with the dog here.
Yeah, and I think it's a good shot. Another one of these binary fights. This is another play I like on Prize Picks. Believe it was 47.5 for Morales for significant strikes, and I just don't see how that goes over in any capacity. Either he's gonna knock Brady out, or Brady's gonna get inside on him and be controlling him, and he won't be able to strike. So that I like it from that perspective. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with the dog as well. Drake, how you see this fight?
I actually thought I was going to be one of the few people on Morales going into this, and then I saw the RotoWire picks, and I was like, "Well, okay then."
Oh, yeah.
I was going back on all the picks that I've made between these two fighters. I've never picked against either one of them in any fight. I've been a big fan of both of them since they both came in. Brady is obviously, he had that tough loss against Edwards, and I think if those two were to rematch, I think Brady would smoke him. But when it comes to these guys, like Chris, you already mentioned it, that reach advantage and the amount of power that just comes behind Morales' shots, I think Brady's going to have a lot of problems with it. And plus, it's hard to take it down a guy that has that much of a reach advantage and size advantage over you.
Yeah.
If he does get it to the ground, well done. I expect he'll probably, destroy him on the mat if he gets it there. He's a top 6 fighter for a reason. If he gets it there, then good for him. He should win this fight. But I just think that striking is going to be very difficult to succumb.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, if he breaches the walls, that it's going to be a good night for him. But it's just so much ground to make up against such a dynamic athlete with so much power. I just don't see it happening. I got to go Morales for the knockout there, but we will see how it shakes out. And now we will head to the co-main event. We've referenced it before. It is Valentina Schevchenko, 8,200, Zhang Weili, 8,000. Line on the fight, similarly close, with Valentina minus 140, Zhang plus 120, and that line has been kind of ping-ponging in that direction. I think Zhang was a small favorite at one point, has now flipped. Of course, Zhang giving up her strawweight title, coming up to flyweight to fight Valentina Schevchenko. And the only X factor here for me is Valentina just going to be able to wrestle her to death? If she can't, I think this is Zhang all day. I think Zhang is just way more athletic, way more agile in there. Going to be a nightmare for Shevchenko's sort of planted style. Zhang likes to throw leg kicks. I think those are going to be open all day long. We know that Shevchenko has some nice counters, and Zhang can get a little sloppy on her way in. But I just think the speed and athleticism is going to make up for that. And I think if there's any parity in wrestling at all, like if Zhang can take down Shevchenko, or if Shevchenko gets takedowns, but Zhang is able to sort of sweep and sort of get back on top or get back to her feet. Don't forget that Tatiana Suarez is very big for the weight class, and Zhang handled all that fine, even got out from under her once. So I don't expect it to be a problem. It could be having flashbacks to Jessica Andrade, who was the big wrestler and then just got trucked by Valentina in that fashion. But I don't think that happens here. I think there's at least going to be some parity there, and I really think this is where, we've known it for some time, but I think this is where, in truth, Zhang Weili really plants her flag, takes out the flyweight GOAT of women's MMA to here, which is Valentina Shevchenko, and really makes her mark. I'm going Zhang in a pretty big way here. with reservation that if a fight goes bad, it can go very bad. But I don't see that scenario playing out. I do think Zhang is going to take it here, but we'll see what the boys think. I'm going to start with Drake. Drake, how you see it?
I'm glad you started with me because Joe's over there smiling and thinking that we're crazy. No, I think this is Shevchenko's demise. I think this is where we see all of the this is where I think we see everything Grasso couldn't do comes to light. Grasso showed the weaknesses in Shevchenko's game, but I don't think Grasso touches Zhang in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
The amount of improvement that we've seen from Zhang throughout the last 5, 6, 7 fights. I mean, basically since she lost to Thug Rose, it's just been crazy. And you know, I hate to say this because Shevchenko is such a great fighter. I think Zhang just manhandles her.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be Zhang in a big way. People are going to want to draw from these fights. Not only are Rose and Valentina very different fighters. Those fights are a long time ago now. I don't expect that. We've seen the wrestling improvements that Zhang has made. I think she's bulked up as well. I think she's worked on her strength. And no, I agree. I think that Zhang is going to surprise a lot of people here, namely Joe. But Joe, how do you see it?
No, not really. Look, like I picked Zhang on Tuesday, but I've come full 360 over the course of the week. I honestly believe there was a greater age gap between the two. I thought Zhang was materially younger, which she's not.
Yeah, she's not.
1 year difference in age. Val is better rounded. She's got way more back class. I think this is going to be a good matchup for Val. I think this is going to be an easier matchup than Fierro, who is like a beast and very strong. Will I be surprised if Zhang wins? No. Will I have shares of Zhang? Absolutely. One of the things I like to do as it relates to the last couple fights on the card, and they're typically main events, is it's a lot easier to hedge on the underdog than it is on the favorite. So if I have these open parlays going and it comes down to, Val being part of those parlays, I could certainly hedge by going off somewhat on Zhang, but I'm gonna switch my pick. Sorry, guys. From Zhang to Val. Go Bullet.
Yeah. No. I'm glad. Well, I was gonna say I'm glad you came to your senses, I guess, but you came around in the wrong direction. But I'm glad that you were thinking and you're gonna have a few shares of the winner there. That's good. But no, I see what you're saying about, obviously her experience in these kind of fights. And she's obviously a great fighter. She didn't get to where she's been for no reason. But I just think that Weili has too many tools here. And as Drake says, I think it's all going to come to a head. But definitely going to be a good fight. And we will see how it plays out. But now we will move to the main event, which is Islam Makhachev at 9,200, going up to welterweight to take on the champion, Jack Della Maddalena, at 7,000. Line on this fight is... Where did I go? Oh, sorry, folks. I seem to have lost my betting thing. 1 second. Okay. It is minus 305 for Islam, plus 255 for Jack Della Maddalena. And the reason I like Islam Makhachev here is I feel like he's not going to lose much strength coming up, but he's going to be way more agile, way more quick. I mean, you see the way that he explodes into shots. It's not going to be anything like a Bilal Muhammad or a Basil Hafez or even a Gilbert Burns. Like, he's going to close distance and get to the hips so quickly that I don't think Maddalena is going to have a chance to think through his defense and throw in the little tricks that he likes to do. It's almost like the difference between playing, regular chess and speed chess, where you're going to have to really just move. Islam is going to make him make decisions quickly, and I just don't think he's going to be ready for it. Now, can he handle Islam on the feet? I actually think people are talking that the feet will be close. I don't think that it will be particularly close, just because, Islam is a headhunter, and Della Maddalena is very good at slipping shots in the pocket. So if it stays standing, I actually do like the fight for Maddalena. I just don't think it stays standing. I think, again, he's just going to need to be able to move too fast and make good decisions on the fly, make them over and over again. As Islam chains things together, I just don't think he's going to be able to do it. The one thing that you do need to be wary of is we've seen Islam slow down in fights before. He's now coming up. He's now putting on more weight. Is the move to welterweight going to replenish him? And now I feel good, or is he going to be saddled with that weight? And is it going to matter in round 4 or 5? We are not going to know that. There's no way to know. It's more of an X factor. I tend to not think so. I think he's a big guy. I think, if anything, the weight cut was hindering him, and he'll look better here. But I can also see a submission victory happening before that. So I'm all over Islam. I really think this is a pretty good spot for him coming up. But we will see what the boys think. And we're going to start with Joe for the main. Joe, how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, Islam all day. I think he gets a lot of control time. You made a lot of good points about the weight cut. He does not look small at all compared to JDM. I mean, there's a 1-inch height difference. I saw a photo on Twitter of JDM standing next to Volkanovski and was surprised how small he was, really. And it looks like, Makhachev is bulked up. Now, I'm also going to say that I was at Makhachev's last fight against Poirier at the Prudential Center. And when I watched that fight, he did not look right. Like, he looked like I saw him wince a couple times. I mean, I had the advantage of an uber large screen watching that fight, and he just did not, he looked like he was a little hurt. Now, he still got the job done, but he didn't look right to me in that fight. I think he is going to be at his best here. I think he dominates. I do see the fight going over 2.5, maybe 3.5 rounds. And that is actually a way to play it. If you really think JDM has a chance, is I don't see JDM finishing necessarily Makhachev. I think or if he does, it's going to be late. So I know a lot of people are playing the over 2.5, over 3.5. That's certainly a way to play this if you don't want to take a side. I may do a little same game parlay going with Makhachev and the rounds. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I really do like Islam here. I mean, the line is kind of getting away from us. It's now over 3-1.
Yeah.
That's tough, but, I like him. I think he's a great parlay piece. As a matter of fact, the hot take is going to include Islam in it, and we're almost there.
Yeah, definitely almost there. What about you, Drake? How you see the main event?
Well, I alluded to this in the beginning that this is one of my least favorite fights on the card.
Yeah.
And I just don't. So, I mean, everything that I read, and it may or may not be true, I'm pretty sure it's pretty factual, though, is that Makhachev, when he was fighting at 155, his weight the next day was 180. And if that is true, then fighting at 170 is no freaking difference.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way Islam fights, it's going to be a nightmare for JDM. It's going to be rinse and repeat, or just control or submission, whatever. It's going to be whatever Makhachev wants to do. It's one of those fights where it's probably going to be so one-sided, and I think that's what bums me out about it, is because the fight before it is going to be so action-packed, right, and then it just falls off. I mean, that's how I see it. And if it's not like that, then great. More to us. But I don't see JDM having any success in this fight.
Well, it doesn't feel like the epic kind of fight somebody comes up to fight. Is it like if it was like? If it was Islam coming up to fight Usman at the height of his powers, that would feel like a big fight. This kind of just feels like, okay, the welterweight title's been knocking around a little bit. and now we've got JDM. And look, maybe we're wrong, and JDM puts on a show and shows us who he really is. That'd be something. But I agree. It kind of loses something for me only because I feel like this is the middleweight fight between Chimaev and what's his name from a couple weeks ago, where we pretty much know how, or I think I know how it's going to go, and then it goes that way, and you're just like, oh, okay. I think it'll be more impressive this time around.
I do think that had we gotten the Shavkat fight before he was pulled out from injury, if he would have won that fight and then would have gotten the title fight, I think the fight between him and Islam would have been so much better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. But as it stands, I do think Islam. Look, if that Della Maddalena can extend, we might see something here. But if he can't, and I'm kind of betting that he can't, it might just be one-way traffic. But that is going to close the breakdown of the UFC 322 card, Fight IQ. If you are not familiar with the show, we are going to move on to a segment we call Hot Takes. Essentially what this is, we take a line that we think is sufficiently juiced up. We bring it to you for a bet. We think that it should be, or it's a little too juiced up. We bring it to you. We think that you will be able to make some money on it potentially. We'll go to the boys in a minute. I want to say, while I'm reading these out, if you have one in the chat, definitely go ahead and put it in there, and I will read it out as we go. I'm going to go ahead with mine first because this one really kind of caught me when I looked at it. Susakarev by submission is plus 650. That is, I had to double check while we were sitting here. I did double check. It is plus 650. I believe the reason for this is if you look at his run out, he's got 10 KO TKOs. He's got one submission, and that one submission was in his last fight. But we know he's a takedown artist, or will use it, and we know that he can. He is a grappler. He is a Russian Dagestani fighter. Obviously, he can grapple, and we know that he wants to have a more dominant showing this time. That all says to me that he should be wrestling and grappling, especially a guy like Makhachev, who was submitted in his last fight. So I think that is a stunningly interesting. I don't want to call it easy because it's betting, and of course anything can happen. I think it's a very, very appealing play at that price. So that is going to be mine. I'll throw it over to the boys. Anybody have a hot take for me?
Yeah, so this is a hot take. I don't expect either one of you guys are going to play. I like Makhachev, Val. I like Dawkins by KO, and I like Blanchfield by decision. That pays almost 10-1. What I would do is I would also back that up or hedge that by playing Dawkins and Blanchfield on the money line. It's obviously going to pay a lot less, but that way at least you'll get something back. And obviously, if they do win by KO and decision, you'll win both bets. So that's my play. Plus 974, or whatever the prevailing odds are. Again, Makhachev, Schevchenko, Dawkins by KO, which is plus 175, and Blanchfield by decision, which is minus 145. And that, again, that all adds up to almost 10-1. Hedge that back by playing all of the fighters on the money line.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. Playing the exactos and having the little hedge in there as well. Nice. Drake, what about you? What do you got?
So I just have 3 single bets. Nothing crazy. First one is Fatima Klein wins by knockout plus 700. I mean, you probably saw that coming.
Yeah.
The other one is Vieira wins by submission, which is plus 450, which to me is just kind of wild, just like the other, the one you just mentioned. And then I found one. I don't know how many books will have this, but Zhang Weili to land a knockdown, just a knockdown, because I think that she can. It's plus 300. I really don't think that's that bad in 5 rounds. I think she can land a knockdown.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. It might drive you crazy based on what they consider and not consider a knockdown.
That is true.
Yeah, but otherwise, that is definitely interesting. Definitely interesting. Looking at the chat here, Joey threw one in here earlier. Edwards by sub plus 2,000 on the sprinkle. We did say that he will wrestle. We saw him hit some nice sweeps against Bilal Muhammad. He can move on the ground, and so maybe want to sprinkle, but I think sprinkle is the operative word. If you're going to play it, I would dust it very lightly with a feather. We have E checking in. Edwards by decision plus 220. A decent shout there. I just don't know how Edwards is going to look down the stretch. I think Edwards tends to fade a little bit, but it could be the case also that he just drags not the newer fighter per se, because Prates is very experienced, but definitely newer at this level. So definitely could be something to take a look out there. And thank you so much. And he also wants to throw in a little love for you there, Joe. Joe is the GOAT. So there you go.
Thank you, appreciate it, brother.
Thank you. Thanks so much for watching. Also, I want to throw in there, if you are watching and you enjoy what you see, definitely give us a like, subscribe to the channel. Helps us out a lot. Otherwise, if there's any more hot takes, I'm going to go once and twice and 3 times. That's it. So we're going to close it out. Thank you all so much for watching. We, of course, will be on our respective Twitter pages at The Onlyest One for me, at Sun Tzu for Joe, at The Birds for Drake. We'll be talking about the fights. We'll be busting each other's chops.
Talking shit.
Talking shit, absolutely. Busting each other's chops. I was going to say a nice way in the DMs, but talking shit for sure. And that's going to be all for us, folks. Hope you enjoy the card. Don't forget to enjoy it, because it's going to be a good one. And
hey, by the way, Chris, I need to make a public service announcement before we go.
Oh, please do.
If anybody has any ins with Dana White, ask him when and if they are going to do a UFC card in Bangkok, because I promised my 2 co-hosts I would actually get them plane tickets to go.
Yeah, and we're holding
could ask Dana White like when he's going to do when or if they're going to do a UFC event. I know one, I believe, is the only organization that's ever done an MMA show in Bangkok and in Thailand, and I think that's part of because the Thais like to protect their Muay Thai matches, but maybe Dana White can talk to the new king and say, hey guys, let us do an event in Thailand, and the 3 of us can actually go there and actually do our podcast from Bangkok.
That'd be incredible.
That would be great. That would be great. Absolutely.
You guys have your passports, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do I? I don't. I have to check on that. I'll get back to you.
You might need to get your passport, Chris.
Yeah, I'll get back to you on that one. But otherwise, we are gonna cut it here, guys. As I was saying, good luck on your contests, and we'll see you for the fights, and definitely enjoy, and we will see you for the next one.
Peace.